Hey, everybody, Legal Vices here with episode 2 of The Last of Us on my spoiler filled, unprofessional, unedited, one take review. That's what we do here. It's totally unprofessional, it's always unedited, and only one take, regardless of what happens. And we're going to be looking at details of episode 2, Last of Us season 1, episode 2. It's called The Infected. It starts out in Jakarta, Indonesia on September 24th, 2003. The police go into a restaurant and they take a woman who was sitting in the back table out of the restaurant. They apologize for ruining her lunch. And while they're driving somewhere in the car, she's like, "Am I under arrest?" They're like, "No. Do you have the right person?" She said, "Well, your name is Ibu Ratna. You're a professor of mycology at the Indonesian university, some university in Indonesia." So, hey, yeah, they got the right guy. So she's a professor of mycology. So they take her to this big guarded facility. It turns out it's a lab. They take her into the lab and they ask her to examine this specimen that they have. And she says that she looks through a microscope and she says it's an opiocordyceps. And she's told that it was taken from a human, but she didn't believe them. She said it can't survive in a human. And they went, mm-hmm. And so then they take her to where this body is. This is the body of a woman. She's been shot in the head, and the carpet definitely matches the curtains on that particular corpse. There's a bite wound on her ankle. They take a living fungus tendril from out of her mouth. The doctor drops it, freaks out, and runs out of the room. And people, they're talking about this with the lady, with the doctor, uh, and they're asking questions back and forth. And she says, "Well, what happened to the people she bit?" The guy says, "Well, they were taken for observation, and then eventually they all had to be shot. They had to be executed." Well, and the doctor says, "Well, what about the person that bit her?" And said they have no idea. So that's the problem. There's still people out there. There's people missing from the factory, and that's where the virus starts, I guess. And she says the problem with this is there's no medicine, there is no vaccine. They said, "Well, what can we do?" And she says, "The only thing you can do is bomb the city and everyone in it." Then we have to cue the Game of Thrones virus opening again. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's just the Game of Thrones intro in a virus format, and it cuts to black. And then Ellie's sleeping on the grass. She's sleeping comfortably on the grass. You remember that at the end of the last season, at the end of the last episode, episode 1, this guard guy that was trying to shoot them got his face punched in to death by Joel, and then they found out Joel and Tess found out that Ellie tested positive for this virus. So Ellie's sleeping on the grass, and it turns out the grass is inside of a house. And she wakes up. She's looking around, and she sees Joel and Tess sitting on the stairs, and they're pointing guns at her. They ask about her arm, and they demand to know what Marlene is doing with an infected kid. Marlene, again, if you'll recall, she is the leader of the Fireflies. They're saying, "So what's Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies, doing with an infected kid?" Ellie says she's not infected, and she drops some F bombs. Ellie drops a lot of F bombs. Lots of people drop a lot of F bombs, but this kid, she drops the most. Joel's hand is broken from punching the soldier to death, so his hand kind of hurts. Tess is the lead actor. I figured that, okay, this is where I figured out that Tess is the lead actress in the show Fringe that was out eons ago. That I really, really liked Fringe. Fringe was way cool. So they demanded to know why she's so special. And Ellie says that she's basically said she's immune to the virus, and she's the key to creating a vaccine. So the Fireflies wanted to take her out west to another Firefly base where they're working on a cure. So Ellie's going to be the key to the cure for the virus. So they need to get her out there. And then she drops a couple more F bombs. Joel's still hesitant. Joel is still, maybe the virus didn't catch the first time. Maybe she still got it. Maybe it's a delayed reaction. He doesn't want to take her. He's being hesitant. And then Ellie starts to mimic one of the virus. We would say, and then Tess just says, "Just don't." And Ellie asks, and see, we were worried about this in the last episode. If it was just going to be a long string of stupid jokes, there is some humor in it. There is a lot of joke, and it seems like pretty realistic sass talk from a child of Ellie's age. If they wanted to be, a snotty kid, So there's some humor, there's some jokes, but it's not just like a running. It's not like Marvel movies where it's like every line has to be a gag of some sort. So Ellie, she asks if she can have a gun. They say no. She drops an F bomb and says, "Okay, well then I'll just throw a sandwich at them if I'm attacked." And then Ellie goes out and she's because she was running away in the dark and she's never been outside of the quarantine zone. So she goes outside in the daytime, and this is literally her first view of the world. She hasn't seen it since that point in time that she can remember, I guess. And she goes out, she sees the world, and then she drops another f bomb. And the visuals again, they're really, really game like. I really like how they're sticking very, very close to the feel of the game with the visuals. They've got the buildings leaning up against each other. They've got streets blocked off by buildings to where you're clearly going to have to work your way through a collapsed building to get to the other side of the street where you need to go. There's some really cool visuals. You know, the cars lining the streets like we've got back there. You know, things like that. I again, I really, really like. I like the feel of it. It feels like the game. Ellie drops another f bomb, and she mentions that she's 14 years old. So she's a 14-year-old dropping f bombs all over the place. She says that she's an orphan, and I'm just gonna go through this. If you know, you know. But it's a big, big reason people didn't like the second game. Ellie's they say, well, you know, Tess asked her, "Do you have any parents that are come looking for you? Any boyfriends, anything like that?" Ellie says, "I'm an orphan," and a big no when she was asked about the boyfriend. They didn't make a deal out of it. They didn't make a big thing about it. It wasn't didn't they didn't go all woke. So there's no need to there's no need to give up on the series yet if that was your problem with the second game. Uh, she just says no, she doesn't have a boyfriend. It was a big no, but it was a no. All right. There's a change. Then they introduce a change from the game while they're explaining the infected. This is a big change from the game. In the game, the infected are the virus is shared by a spore airborne spores from the fungus that they explode or whatever they get airborne, and you get some people's faces and they are infected. Here, apparently, that's not going to be the case because Ellie's asking about the virus and how it spread and stuff. And so they say, what we've been told, this is what we were told. We've been told these things. Are they true? And she says, so Ellie said, are there not, super infected that explode fungus spores on you? And Tess says, well, shit, I hope not. And then she says, or what about the ones with split open heads that see in the dark like bats? And Tess and Joel just kind of look at each other like, yeah, 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 that one's real. And then they hear an eerie, like monster scream, an infected scream from somewhere down the street across this river. So it seems like here the infection will be spread by a bite rather than through spores that are airborne, which means that they're not going to be wearing gas masks when they crawl through buildings because that was a huge part of the game. Was every time you went into a building and you saw some spores and things, you put on your gas mask, and that got you through. It kind of limited your vision and whatnot. But I guess they're not gonna do this, and I don't blame them because they go through a lot of buildings, and I'm sure they don't wanna be wearing gas masks through the entire thing, and I'm pretty sure Pedro Pascal is really, really sick of wearing a mask because he's masked up the entire time, essentially, in The Mandalorian. Only a few brief moments he's ever taken the mask off. So I get him not wanting to wear it, and then just for visuals, they don't wanna have their main characters with masks on their face the entire time. So, I guess they've sent it to, and it does not bother me that they spread it through a bite. It's gonna I mean, yeah, it is what it is, and it doesn't bother me that much. If it freaks some people out, whatever, but I think it's still good. It still gets you the feel of the game. Where were we in the notes? Okay. Then it cuts to this building. They're getting ready to go in the building. There's a piano there and a kind of a cool little thing with a little frog hopping on the piano keys. That was kind of cool. Um, and then there's more game stuff. There's like stairs. They're in a hotel. There's some stairs going down, and then it's just full of stagnant lily pond filled water. And they've got to get to a stairway across the, I guess it's the lobby of the hotel. And so that's it's one of the good scenes in the game where you have to walk through water and some things may or may not come out of the water. So it was really tense. It was kind of nice. I liked it. And then of course, Ellie wanders off to do Ellie related things. She's never been in a hotel before, so she goes around and plays. And then she sees a skeleton that's kind of halfway submerged in the water, and she drops an F bomb. And then she drops another F bomb. And then there's a series of four F bombs from Tess as they climb up 10 flights of stairs and walk down a hallway. And they find there's a locked door, which again is a huge game thing. You go to all this mess, you get in some you go way out of your way. You get up to the top of a building or down in the bottom of somewhere, and there's a locked door. And then you've got to figure out how to get past that locked door. And they do thing that you do in the game all the time. Tess decides that she is going to climb up through the rubble, out onto the ledge, 10 stories above the ground, and walk across the ledge, go into the room next door, and then come and open the door from the other side. You do that so many times in the games. So that was very, very authentic to the games as well. So while they're doing that, while they're waiting for her, Joel and Ellie have another discussion about the infected. Ellie asks, "How long do these infected live?" Joel says, some of them they live for 2 months. Others they've been walking around for 20 years. So in other words, who knows? They just live as long as they live. And then the door gets opened. They go out on the balcony, and they're looking over the balcony, and they see this gigantic horde of infected. They're just all laying on the ground, and they're sort of moving in sort of in sync, like swallows or something. You get like these or locusts when they fly around in the big swarms. They kind of have like a pattern to them, a flow to them, sort of like fluid dynamics thing. It's kind of fun to watch. And that's when she goes, "Oh my gosh, they're connected somehow." And it was explained that the tendrils, the virus tendrils from the fungus, that it's also they go underground and some of them can stretch for miles. And they say they're connected through these tendrils to where you can step on a tendril in one place and that will alert a bunch of the infected somewhere else. That's somewhere along this tendril of the virus that runs underground. And so she says you step on a patch of cordyceps in one place, and that can alert more infected in another place. Then they decided, okay, they have to take a shortcut through a museum. And as they're approaching the museum, they find some old fungus, some dried fungus there that's all dead. And they're okay, cool. So there's no more monsters in here. The virus has died in here. They go inside, and what's the first thing they do? They find a big bloody corpse that's been ripped open and ripped to pieces. Ellie drops expectedly another F bomb. And Joel and Tess now they insist on silence. He says, "Not quiet, silence from now on." And then as they're walking up the stairs to the museum, they're trying to get to the top of the museum again. There's falling dust. There's some noise from upstairs. They don't know if it's just something settling or something they did or whatnot, but they keep walking. And it's pretty suspenseful, actually. It's very, very game like. You just never know if something's going to come out from around the corner or what's waiting for you down a hall. I like the connection with the game and the feel with the game. And then suddenly they realize that there's at least one more infected on the same floor they're on. And damn it, it's a clicker. I freaking hate these clickers. They, they're the worst part of the game. They're these big things that are they're freaking hard to kill. And the noise they make, you just know you're walking down a dark hallway. So you haven't run into any monsters or infected for a long time, and then you hear like this thing. You're like, it's a clicker. And their deal is, well, they explain it here. So they look exactly like they do in the game. They're pretty cool too. They can't see, but they can hear. And so they're very, very sensitive. So you have to be very, very still, wait for them to wander around. You have to go in stealth mode to try to attack them from behind, or better yet, to avoid them because they are damn hard to kill. But there's a little noise and the infected attack. There's a big fight, and it was a long, intense, really, really, really well done fight scene. They kill it. Eventually, Joel blasts it in the head, but that alerts another clicker that's on the same floor also. And that clicker comes, and they have to fight that thing. They eventually kill it as well. Good old they go out on the roof, and it's some good old gaming stuff. You have to walk across the rooftops from buildings, across planks over the drop off, and so that's kind of fun to do that. And there's as you're seeing, there's a lot of elements of the game here, which really keeps you locked in. So it's fun. And now they've got to the place. Finally, they're to the place where they were supposed to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies. Then they were going to get their battery. Then they're going to go off to Wyoming, Tess and Joel. But of course, if that happened, it would be a very short game and it would be a very short TV series. That's not, in fact, what happened. They see the truck, get up on the truck. There's blood inside the truck. There's a bunch of dead bodies underneath the truck and around the truck, and there's a trail of blood leading into this building. So they go inside the building. And they notice that everybody, all the Fireflies that were supposed to take Ellie somewhere out west, are dead. And Joel says apparently one of them was bitten, and all the infected fought all the non-infected, and everybody lost. Well, Tess is upset. Tess is upset because their battery's not there. Everybody that's supposed to take Ellie are dead, and now she's just saying, "All right, we're done. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm staying here. I'm tired. I've had it." And the way she said it, I guess, clues Ellie off, and Ellie goes, "Oh my gosh." She drops another F-bomb, and she says, "Tess is infected." So Joel demands to see the bite, and Tess shows that she's been bitten on the collarbone. Then Tess gives her speech. Take Ellie to Bill and Frank, because they asked Ellie, where were these Fireflies supposed to take you? Where were they supposed to deliver you to this lab? She said, "I don't know. It was just out west somewhere. I have no idea where it was." So she says, "Take Ellie to Bill and Frank because the immunity is real. You have to believe in this." And then one of the bodies moves, and Ellie drops an F bomb, and Joel shoots him in the head, shoots the zombie dude, the infected, in the head. And then all of the horde that were down the street, or however the hell far away it was that they were looking at from the balcony of this building, this little sea of infected, they all start moving, and they all stand up, and they all start running towards where Joel, Tess, and Ellie are. So this whole explanation about how if you step on one piece of fungus somewhere, it can trigger and alert people, infected somewhere else. And that's exactly what happened. So it turns out to be foreshadowing. This entire horde from before, they start moving and running towards the building, and Tess begins to pour gasoline all over the floor. She takes some grenades, puts them out in the middle of the floor, and sends Joel on his way to save Ellie. So you got to save her. You got to do it. This is real. Get her out of here. Go, go, go. Ellie doesn't want to go. So she drops some F bombs. She drops a few F bombs, and the horde arrives. And of course, the Zippo lighter that Tess is trying to work to ignite the fuel and grenades that are all over the floor doesn't work. She keeps flicking. Nothing happens. They're running through the building. She's got to get them before they get out to the other side of the building. She she keeps flicking. Nothing's happening. They're not getting her. And then one of the infected out of the crowd just like looks at her and slowly starts walking towards her. And then, oh God, he gave her this mutant infected zombie tendril filled kiss. Like all the tendrils in his mouth were like, and they were going into Tess's mouth. And then finally, thank God, she flicks the lighter one last time while she's getting this tendril mutant fungus French kiss from dead guy. And then she drops the Zippo into the gasoline. It finally lights. There's an explosion. Boom. And it ends. Episode 2 ends. Now the first episode ended with some Depeche Mode tunes. But this just ended with sad music. I guess Tess is dead and whatnot, and Ellie's a little bit shell-shocked. So that's where we leave episode 2. Now I guess we got to go find Bill and Frank in episode 3. That's going to be out very, very soon. I'll get the review as quickly as possible. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this spoiler-filled, unprofessional, unedited, one-take review of episode 2 of The Last of Us. Hope you remember to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and come back for episode 3. Until then, I am Legal Vices, inviting you to always enjoy your legal vices. Lawrax is out.